Hey everyone, welcome back to Secret of Mana Redux. It's Mana Redux here again, and it's great to have you all here as we take a look at some of the mysteries and oddities and downright vague stuff in Secret of Mana's script. Let's face it, most of us aren't playing Secret of Mana for a stabbing plotline to begin with, but there's actually some interesting ideas beneath the surface. And unless you happen to be casually sitting on a host of Japanese guides and magazine features, there's my stash right there. Not to mention the original Japanese script, a lot of lore and plot details would have eluded you. Luckily, we spent quite a bit of time over the years trying to piece everything together, and in today's video we're going to break down 5 topics that come up a lot, with a lot more coming in the near future. So pour yourself a cup of something and let's get to work. Okay, question 1. How is the Mana Fortress in flawless condition at the time of Secret of Mana? The prologue tells us that the original Mana heroes smashed the Mana Fortress during an ancient war. The Mana Fortress was draining all of the world's mana for evil reasons, and the gods of the world became enraged and sent the downright adorable Mana Beast to destroy it, and the world was more or less wrecked in the conflict. The original Mana hero joined the battle with the Mana Sword and finished the job, causing the fortress to be destroyed. After that, the Mana Beast vanished, and humanity rebuilt the world using the power of mana for good. The Mana Fortress ended up at the bottom of the ocean on a sunken continent that we'll talk more about shortly. But even after getting stomped by the Mana Hero and the Mana Beast, and being underwater for thousands of years, it's in pristine condition for Secret of Mana. It seems that Thanatos just flipped a switch, turned on the Wi-Fi, and boom, good to go. Clearly we're missing something here. If we go back to the Japanese script, it doesn't actually say that the heroes smashed the fortress. Nobunaga, a translator with an interest in old games, points out that the word used here is the passive form of another word which basically means drop, but can have a ton of meanings depending on the context. In this case, something like struck or took down is the best option to maintain the nuance of it falling, since it is a flying fortress. Mystery solved, right? The Mana hero only subdued the fortress and, for reasons, decided to store it somewhere out of the reach of humanity rather than completely obliterated. This here is the Japanese setting and material guide that was produced along with the 2018 remaster. It clearly says once again that the Mana Fortress was utterly destroyed by both the Mana hero and the Mana Beast, then sank to the bottom of the ocean. And before I forget, the video orbs in the lofty mountains also reveal that the fortress spectacularly crashed into the ocean. All of this contradicts our earlier theory. Dagnabbit. So after this, I asked our good friend and expert Yoshi for his input, and basically, there's different degrees of destroyedness in Japanese that can be expressed using extra adjectives, but none of those are present in the sources. He added that it was clearly bad enough to be taken out of the picture, but how damaged it was is anyone's guess. As for how the Empire repaired it, the setting and material guide gives us a clue. It says that the Emperor's General Geshtar was a master of ancient technology far more advanced than what's generally available at the time of Secret of Mana, which is likely one of the reasons that he became a machine rider. To illustrate this, we can take a look in the Japan-only Fundamental Knowledge Guide from 1993, which tells us that the second time you fight Geshtar, he's part cyborg after his injuries in Kakara. While Geshtar had perished by the time Thanatos activates the Mana Fortress, he was resurrected to become a fighting zombie. Even if he himself didn't repair the fortress since he's too busy with life as an undead thing, we can safely assume that the Empire has some serious technology chops. For example, in the Fundamental Knowledge Guide, it says that the Empire's metal mantis was created by transplanting the brain of the mantis ant into a mechanical body with a 5,000 horsepower motor, reanimating its attack patterns and making it faster than before. With the massive invasion force they sent to the Lost Continent, it's clear they had a plan and the resources to get the Mana Fortress up and running again. Whatever repairs or adjustments were needed, they got it done, somehow. You see that we can't really get the whole story from what's available. Get used to that sentiment as we try something else. Question 2. What did it mean for the Mana Seeds to be sealed, and when was each one sealed and unsealed? So here's the deal. When Randy holds the Mana Sword up to the Mana Seed, Luka makes clear that he sealed it. You might be stunned to learn that this line was not in the Japanese script, and Ted Woolsey probably added it to make sense of what's happening here. So what exactly transpires when the sword resonates with the seed? For one, Randy and friends receive the power of the Mana Seed, which means they can learn magic and skills at higher levels. If all 8 Mana Seeds are accessed, Randy will have a fully powered Mana Sword. And 2, the Mana Seed is sealed, which basically means that its power has been fully restored. So what happens when it's unsealed? The Mana Seeds are a small part of the Mana Tree itself, as Jema tells us towards the end of the game. An NPC in Tasnica further explains that the seeds seal off the lost continent where the Mana Fortress is. So essentially, the 8 seeds comprise a lock that can be undone to raise the lost continent and give access to the Mana Fortress. This is in addition to the notion that the Mana Seeds seem to regulate and reflect the state of mana in their local area. The setting and material guide makes clear that it was the first Mana hero himself who created this mechanism after the war with the Mana Fortress. As a sidebar, it's not clear if the Mana Fortress fell to the lost continent before or after the continent was submerged. The state of each seed must be different at the start of Secret of Mana. The lost continent would have already risen if they were unsealed, and if they were already sealed, then why would Randy have to do anything in the first place? Mana is fading throughout the world, and as it does, the seeds are losing their seals. Meanwhile, the Empire is going around breaking whatever seals are left to raise the continent and get their hands on the Mana Fortress. Okay, so Randy goes to each palace and restores the seals on each seed with the Mana Sword. That's literally the whole point of Secret of Mana. But then, how the heck is the Emperor able to raise the lost continent only by breaking one seal in the Tree Palace? This is one of the most vague aspects of Secret of Mana's script, and unless you were really paying attention, it's hard to know the answer. In the Tree Palace, the Emperor tells Randy, "The ancient continent will surface once I've broken all the palace seals. Once I break this last seal, the Mana Fortress will rise." But wait, when did this mass unsealing even happen? The only way to know in the American script is the often missed scene in the Water Palace where Luka tells Randy that the Empire came by once again to break the seal on the Water Seed. But despite Popoe's grandpa still being at the Wind Palace, his dialogue doesn't change to reflect any Imperial invasion, and he seems to be in the same spot you left him in months earlier. If we go back to the Emperor's speech in the Tree Palace, the Japanese script has another line. Already, the seals on the palaces throughout the world have been undone. A similar line made it into the 2018 remake. This means that the Empire went galloping around the world and dissolved all 7 seals at some point around the time that Randy was being trained by Sage Jock, but before the Tree Palace. All of Randy's, and by extension, your hard work at 7 Mana Palaces vanished off camera in one line. Next question. Why doesn't Jema and Luka's dialogue change at the end? This is an easy one. Ready? I have no idea. Once Randy finds out about the Pure Land, you'd think that one of the world's foremost Mana Keepers would have a few takes on it. But Luka never mentions the Pure Land, nor does she ever mention Randy's dad, the Mana Tree, or the Mana Fortress after it's activated. She only tells Randy, "You can't restore your sword if they break the seal you put on the seeds," which means that she wasn't aware that the Mana Tree can do just that. Jema tells us in the Japanese script that it was Sage Jock who told him about the Pure Land and the Mana Tree, so that might make sense. But even Jema has nothing new to say after the Pure Land. Theron, Randy's dad, was his closest colleague during his years in Tasnica. In fact, Randy would have been born while he knew Theron. Jema also never reveals if his presence in Potos at the beginning of the game was a coincidence or if he sensed something big. Here comes the next one. What's the connection between the Mana Beast and Flammie? The answer to this one is far murkier than you can imagine. Secret of Mana's original translator Ted Woolsey tells us the following after the heroes see the Mana Beast. Popoe is a Mana Beast. Prim, isn't it a Flammie? Randy, I guess Flammies were once Mana Beasts. This is an extremely confusing line that could imply that Flammie is a type of species, and not just their pet dragon's name, and also that the Mana Beast might even be Flammie himself. In fact, a lot of Secret of Mana players still believe that non-twist to this day. The Japanese script only confuses the situation further, but before we get to that, I have to note, in Japanese the Mana Beast was known as the God Beast, but I'm using Mana Beast here to distinguish between the one beast that tries to save the world and the many beasts of the gods that we'll be talking about shortly. Popoe, that must be the Mana Beast. Prim, it looks like Flammie. Randy, I guess even Flammie was originally a beast of the gods. Randy is probably referring to what the Mana Tree tells us back in the Pure Land about how the Mana Beast happens. Let's compare the Japanese script with Woolsey. Woolsey says, soon all the beasts of will be transformed into one giant creature. You'll notice that it should say Beast of the World, which was probably a transcription mistake and not Ted's fault. In Japanese we have, in but a moment, beasts of the gods from throughout the world will gather and transform into a single gigantic Mana Beast. The script is referring to those flying creatures that are seen all over the world. An NPC in Matango tells us in the American version, legend has it that a Mana Beast took on the fortress. Animals similar to Mana Beasts live in our world. Sometimes you see them flying through the wood. And in Japanese, I expect you already know the legend, the battle that engulfs the world in flames between the Mana Fortress and the Mana Beast. Themes are different from that Mana Beast, but in this world since ancient times there have been living things that were called beasts of the gods. Sometimes, out in the middle of forests and such places, some incomprehensible dark thing goes flying by, right? That's them. These beasts of the gods probably converge to become the Mana Beast at the end of Secret of Mana. But this still doesn't explain how Flammie fits in. You'll remember that Flammie disappears after the Mana Beast fight and isn't mentioned again. There's two main possibilities. Flammie was a beast of the gods and merged into the Mana Beast, or two, Flammie wasn't a beast of the gods and wasn't part of the Mana Beast, but his species might have been like god beasts once upon a time or resembled them. Okay, last one for now. What is the Secret of Mana? Probably nothing more than an English title some intern came up with for the Super Nintendo sequel to Final Fantasy Adventure. But our good friend Dr. Shiksi from the Seikens website found one place in Japanese where it actually mentions the Secret of Mana. This is the only one we've ever found. It was this V-Jump feature from July of 1993, and it has tips and advice on Secret of Mana for many of the game's characters. Here it says that Luka is a Grand Priestess with knowledge of the Secret of Mana. Think of everything Luka taught us and take that for what it's worth. Thanks to everyone for making our first month on YouTube a blast, especially as we're still learning. We'd love to hear what you think the answers to these 5 questions are. Also, be sure to follow our channel as there's a mound of videos in the works. Thanks for watching. Until next time.